Hi, friends and family. Hope you're doing well. It's Inauguration Day, and for the second time in American history, we have a president serving his second non-consecutive term, the first being Grover Cleveland, and someone returning to power who tried to overthrow the United States government. Is a convicted felon and stole classified documents and laying them around his Mar-a-Lago resort for his paying members to see, showing them off to his paying members.
We begin tonight with breaking news. The actual audio recording of the former president talking as if he's showing a highly classified document on U.S. war plans against Iran with people not cleared to even know it exists, let alone what's in it.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Look. Wait a minute. Let's see here. This totally wins my case, you know. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. This was done by the military, given to me. See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, you know. But this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. No.
Hey, bring some Cokes in, please.
And even after a first term where he refused to divest from his companies, promoting them, receiving profits from them, murdered a bunch of his own supporters with disinformation during a deadly pandemic, created chaos every single day with crazy-ass tweets, funneled foreign money into his own pockets while president.
NBC News has obtained receipts showing Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Turkey, China, and Malaysia spent hundreds of thousands of dollars at the Trump International Hotel in Washington. At the very same time, they were seeking to influence U.S. foreign policy in their favor. These documents sharply call into question the extent to which President Trump was guided by his personal financial interest while in office rather than the best interests of the American people.
Changed laws to benefit him and his other billionaire friends. Even after all of his failures, he flipped every single swing state red. Republicans were able to take control of both houses of Congress even after pushing disinformation about Hunter Biden and Ukraine while running interference for Donald Trump's crimes. Donald Trump enters office with what he believes to be a sweeping mandate to fundamentally change America itself, to change all aspects of American life into Trumpism. And as I explained in my last video, Trump is a fascist. We are going to enter in a new era of America, of fascism. What does this mean? Well, for the Trump supporter, you're fucked. I understand Trump supporters are in economic pain, but you gave the keys to the people who are creating that economic pain and expecting them to give you the solution? You're fucked. Do you honestly think that billionaires are going to come save you? Show me in recorded history when the billionaires which are causing the economic problems you're facing are going to give you the solution. And for those who didn't vote for Trump, I'm sorry, you're fucked. You don't have to watch the hour-long video anymore, that's it. But if you want to go deeper, for normal Americans, what does this mean? What happens next? Because we know Trump's history of praising autocrats, undermining democratic norms, and vowing to rule with unchecked authority leaves no ambiguity of his intentions. I am not a mind reader, I just pay attention. But friends, make no mistake, this isn't just your typical shift in power from one party to another. It is the beginning of a fundamental transition of American democracy. I am not talking out of my butt. I don't have to speculate what this transformation is going to look like. Trump, Fox News, and Republicans, they have told you already, from attacks on the press and civil society to the purge of those seen disloyal in the government. Republicans have told you already their fascistic intentions.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy once and for all. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government, and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Eighth, we will continue the effort to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside the Washington swamp. As many as 100,000 government positions could be moved out of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America.
The GOP's Project 2025 already lays out the roadmap to centralize power in the federal government at the executive branch, roll back regulatory protections, removing the independence of agencies and instead bringing them all under the authority and direction of Donald Trump, undoing the reason why these agencies were made independent of the executive branch in the first place, Republican corruption. And Republicans are running a playbook that already has decades of success, the Viktor Orban model. Viktor Orban is the long-running prime minister of Hungary, a dictator, a hero to Republicans, Trump and his allies, who over the past 2 decades has systematically dismantled democratic checks and balances, revised his country's constitution to gain unlimited and unchecked power. Orban didn't take control of his country through a coup or violent means, but working within the laws and within the system. Transformed Hungary into what he proudly calls an illiberal democracy. Liberal not on the Democrat-Republican spectrum, but on the freedom-authoritarian spectrum. Instead, like Trump, Orban was prime minister for a single term, lost the election, then spent his time out of power figuring out how to rig the system should he ever return to power. And Hungarians voted him back into power knowing full well what was going to happen. Orban got right to work firing anyone in the government who he deemed disloyal, changed the constitution to ensure one-party rule. He took over his country's media. Independent news agencies were run out of business at the mass amounts of lawsuits he threw at them, and then his billionaire friends bought them at discounts and then converted them into propaganda machines. He then changed the laws to throw out judges who would stand in his way and replaced them all with party loyalists. He rigged elections, actual rigged elections. And just like Vladimir Putin of Russia, surrounded himself with people who owe their success to him, ensuring he would have a front line of defense against his critics. Dole out favors to those who support him, a network of loyal supporters in every part of Hungarian society. All must pay tribute to him, and he will dole out favors. Change laws to crack down on critics. Laws that allowed him to label independent agencies as foreign agents, which brought down heavy-handed regulations and made them impossible to operate in the country, declaring the need for special powers and then never giving them up. Exploited crises like the 2015 Syrian civil war, which caused a mass migration. He built a fence along his southern border and physically pushed asylum seekers back, claiming Hungary was under threat from external forces like immigrants and the EU. It made his base feel like they were fighting for the soul of a nation. And he used that fear as control. Does all of this sound familiar? Because we're living in this today. Republicans have successfully imported the Orban model into America. How did we get here? In 2021, Fox News white supremacist host Tucker Carlson visited Hungary, dedicated an entire week of segments of his popular primetime show to Viktor Orban's policies, including a one-on-one interview. The purpose of this trip was to introduce Viktor Orban to sucker viewers at Fox News that he was a defender of the Christian faith.
Of the nearly 200 different countries on the face of the earth, precisely one of them has an elected leader who publicly identifies as a Western-style conservative. His name is Viktor Orban. He's the Prime Minister of Hungary. What does Viktor Orban believe? Just a few years ago, his views would have seemed moderate and conventional. He thinks families are more important than banks. He believes countries need borders. For saying these things out loud, Orban has been vilified. Left-wing NGOs have denounced him as a fascist, a destroyer of democracy. Last fall, Joe Biden suggested he's a totalitarian dictator. Here's Viktor Orban. His accent's pretty thick, but his English is precise. He's worth hearing.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much. So in 2015, hundreds of thousands of migrants appear on your southern border. They appear all over Europe. They stream into Germany. The rest of the EU says, welcome, please come. We can handle it. We're strong enough. Hungary stands alone in saying no. Why?
That was the only reasonable behavior. You have to defend your country and to say, guys, stop. But you can't cross, without any kind of limitation and permission and any contribution and control of the Hungarian state. It's dangerous. You have to defend your people against any danger.
And you think you have a right to do that?
Of course. It's coming from the God, the nature, so all arguments with us. Because this is our country, this is our population, this is our history, this is our language, so we have to do that. This is not a human right to come here. No way, because it's our land. It's a nation, it's a community, families, history, tradition, language.
Saying what you just said, which I think will seem obvious to a lot of our viewers, was very offensive to a lot of countries in Western Europe, to their leaders.
Yeah, because many European countries decided to open a new chapter of their own history of the nation. They call it New Society, which is a post-Christian, post-national societies. They believe firmly that if different communities, even huge number of, let's say, Muslim communities, and the original inhabitant, let's say, Christian communities are mixed up, the outcome of this will be good. There is no answer whether it will be good or bad, but I think it's very risky. And the chance that it will be not good, but it will be very bad, is obvious.
In reality, all Tucker Carlson was doing is what he always does, showing his viewers what a white ethno-state utopia would look like. His special held up Orban as a model to aspire to. A model leader who stood up to the Jews. Global elites. It was not a simple media tour. It was to show American conservatives what could be adapted here in the United States. Carlson's glowing portrayal of Orban presented his illiberal policies as possible solutions to issues like immigration, conservative perceived media bias, and what conservatives think is the erosion of traditional values, and framed Hungary as the model for American governance.
And that is exactly why Democrats become hysterical when you mention the obvious successes that are on display here in Hungary on the immigration question. They don't want you to know that there's an option to the chaos and filth and crime growing all around us. We don't have to live like that anymore. Actually, we could have a functioning country.
Tucker has spent the years since then trying to convince American conservatives that importing the Orban model here in America is the best path to undoing American democracy. Then in 2022, shortly after giving a speech calling for Hungary to be a pure ethno-state by removing mixed races, and a cabinet member resigned in protest over its pure Nazi speech, Orban was then invited to speak at CPAC, the largest yearly gathering of conservatives, who in fact did not mind the Nazi speech.
Because for the first time at CPAC, people were applauding another country.
Hungary's on the forefront.
When you see people like leaders in Hungary talking and speaking the way that Donald Trump did when he was in office, it inspires me.
I think Hungary is a positive example about how being a confident conservative can really do wonderful things for a country.
At CPAC, Orban gave a speech on how to take apart a democracy piece by piece using the system to destroy the system.
My country, Hungary, is the lone star state of Europe. We vote for Christianity in the Middle and Modern Ages, and we fought for Christian democracy in the 20th century and continue to fight to this day. They hate me and slander me and my country as they hate you and slander you and the America you stand for. We all know how this works. Progressive liberals didn't want me to be here because they knew what I would tell you. Because I'm here to tell you that we should unite our forces. Because we Hungarians know how to defeat the enemies of freedom on the political battlefield. I am here to tell you how we made these values successful and mainstream in Hungary. Perhaps our story can help you keep America great. You also have to know how you should fight. My answer is play by your own rules. But how do you do that? It is as simple as it sounds. You must play to win. We cannot fight successfully by liberal means, because our opponents use liberal institutions, concepts, and language to disguise their Marxist and hegemonist plans. Politics, my friend, are not enough. This war is a culture war. We have to revitalize our churches, our families, our universities, and our community institutions. Hungary.
It was a blueprint for dismantling democracy under the guise of protecting national sovereignty and cultural identity. He highlighted the importance of controlling media narratives, restructuring the judiciary, and ensuring electoral victories through legal manipulation. That was his CPAC speech. Now, conservatives could not get enough of Viktor Orban.
Viktor Orban of Hungary. So they asked him, what do we do? Wars are breaking out all over the world. He said, the answer is very simple. Make sure that Trump gets reelected president, and you're not going to have any more wars. You're not going to have any more problems.
You know, there's a great leader, in my opinion, is very strong. Some people say it's terrible to say that, but he is. Viktor Orban, he's the prime minister of Hungary. And they asked him, what would you do? There are wars all over the world right now. He said, what I do is make sure the American people vote for Donald Trump for president, because when he was president, China feared him. I don't want to be feared.
And Orban was right. We have to have somebody that can protect us. You know, one of the strongest of all is Viktor Orban. And Viktor Orban of, that of Hungary.
Viktor Orban made a statement. They said, bring Trump back and we won't have any problems.
But, Viktor Orban, and you've heard me say this, but it wasn't long ago, he said the only way you're going to solve the world problem is Trump has to be president again.
The head of Hungary, Orban, very respected guy. He said the only way we're going to solve the world problem, you got to bring Trump back.
Enthralled, CPAC decided to have its first ever international convention in Budapest, Hungary, where Orban once again was keynote speaker and delivered a chilling 12-point recipe for political success, describing it as an open source blueprint for undoing democracy from within while maintaining popular support. Here was Orban's 12-point recipe. Number 1, play by your own rules, ignore criticism, and reject any standard set by your opponent.
A magyar recept első pontja: a saját szabályaink szerint kell játszani. Győzni csak úgy lehet, ha nem fogadjuk el a mások által kínált megoldásokat és utat.
As former President Donald Trump prepares for a return to the White House, the aides and allies running his transition team have avoided many of the rules guiding the process.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Boys,
stand back and stand by.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Throw away whatever existed before, win at any cost. 2, put national conservatism at the core of domestic policy. Prioritize the nation above individual freedom.
Második pont. Nemzeti konzervativizmus a belpolitikában. Azért kell gyámolítani az egyházakat és támogatni a családokat, mert belőlük épül fel a nemzet.
In Hungary, this meant policies funneling support into churches, families, such as paying women to have more babies, and other symbols of traditional values, while framing progressive ideas as a threat to national identity.
The Orban government has chosen to address the issues by giving straight families financial incentives to, make more Hungarians. Nora Kirali is a mother who benefits from the family policy. With 5 children of her own, she'll never pay income tax again.
Hát ugye a családok támogatása az egyik legfontosabb, a közbiztonság, az, hogy nincsen itt Magyarországon migráció. Azt szeretnénk, hogy a magyarok megmaradjanak abban az értékrendben, és hát az, hogy más vallású, más nemzetiségű emberek teljesen más kultúrával tömegesen bevándorolnak ide Magyarországra, de hát ugye ez egy olyan dolog, amit nem lehet már visszafordítani.
3, focus on national interests in foreign policy. Reject ideological battles, instead dumb it down to Hungary first.
A harmadik pont, nemzeti érdek a külpolitikában. A nemzet az első. Hungary first, America first.
Ensure decisions are rooted in self-interest instead of international cooperation, which makes foreign policy now transactional, which you can use to your advantage, such as holding up European Union Ukraine aid until they lift sanctions on his country.
Most recently, and most worrying for the U.S., Hungary resisted approving Sweden's bid to join NATO and European Union support for Ukraine. In each case, Orbán got what he wanted. Swedish jets and 10 billion euros the EU had frozen over Hungary's violations of the rule of law.
4. Control the media. Orbán explicitly stated that controlling media narratives is essential to conservative success. This is because conservative ideas cannot stand on their own. Instead, a coordinated disinformation campaign has to be waged.
4. pont, kedves barátaim, legyen médiánk. A progresszív baloldal őrültségeit csak akkor tudjuk bemutatni, ha van média, ami segít ebben.
After losing power once, Viktor Orbán learned the lesson of a free and open press covering his failures is what lost him control. When he regained power, he knew he could not let that same mistake happen again. However, dictators of old would jail journalists, shut down the newspapers, actions that would seem harsh in a functioning democracy. So instead, he used a quieter, softer approach, working within the legal system to bring the press under his control. Targeted independent journalists with new taxes, withheld government ads that would keep them afloat, sue the independent news agencies out of business. And then his billionaire friends would come in and buy these independent news agencies at a massive discount, and then convert them into pro-Orbán propaganda outlets. The result was a media landscape where criticism was pushed out to the margins. And now Orbán's government could act with impunity. The people in Hungary now get a steady stream of Orbán-approved news, shaping how they think and how they vote. Orbán's approach was subtle, legal, and effective. Orbán argued because the press has a liberal bias, he encouraged conservatives to break norms, take over the press, justifying media control as a defensive measure. Well, we're only doing this because of the liberal bias. Donald Trump and his allies are already following this blueprint. You see it today. Brendan Carr, Trump's pick to lead the FCC, wrote the Project 2025 section on the plans for the FCC, which included enabling the FCC to fine Trump's critics, investigate, and even revoke the broadcast license of Trump's critics, which Donald Trump has already threatened to do with CNN, CBS, ABC, and others, previously saying that CBS should have its broadcast license revoked because of a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris that he punked out on.
But unfortunately, last week, Trump canceled.
Cut for time, Republican media blew up over.
I've spoken out about the unethical editing of the Kamala Harris interview by 60 Minutes. Terrible. But you go a step further and you say CBS should lose its license. Why?
Sure. Well, I've never seen anything like it.
But her answer was still within the realm of what she was trying to convey, much like when Fox News edited its town hall of Trump, or edited out the racist comments of Kanye West to promote him as a pro-Trump black man.
I prefer my kids knew Hanukkah than Kwanzaa. At least it will come with some financial engineering. I just trust Latinos when I work with them. I trust them more than I'll be safe. Certain other businessmen, you know. If what I'm saying is toxic, thank God I got it out my body.
And under Brendan Carr, these threats are now actionable policies to reshape the media landscape in a pro-Trump narrative.
What can the FCC do to help legacy media?
You know, there's a lot the FCC can do. Broadcasters are differently situated than other speakers. They get free access to a valuable public resource, the airwaves, and they're licensed by the FCC. And the exchange for that is they have to serve the public interest. I think it's important that we take another look at that and we reinvigorate it. There's also a news distortion complaint at the FCC still having to do with CBS, and CBS has a transaction before the FCC. And I'm pretty confident that news distortion complaint over the CBS 60 Minutes transcript is something that's likely to arise in the context of the FCC's review of that transaction.
You're already seeing this happen. ABC News settled with Trump for $15 million because George Stephanopoulos correctly labeled Donald Trump a convicted rapist.
You don't find it offensive that Donald Trump has been found liable for rape?
Donald Trump was found guilty of sexual abuse, inserting his finger into a woman's vagina without permission, what you and I would call rape. Federal law defines as rape, but New York law defines as sexual assault.
Walked in, and the minute I was in there, he shut the door and pushed me up against the wall and banged my head. Put his shoulder against me to hold me against the wall. And at that point, I realized that I was in a very difficult situation. I was wearing a coat dress and tights, and he pulled down the tights.
You're saying there was actual penetration?
Yes.
That is the definition of rape. One definition.
That's the definition.
Instead of fighting it, ABC bent the knee and bowed to Donald Trump. Jim Acosta, a thorn in the side of Donald Trump during his entire first term, who now has a popular CNN show, is being exiled to the midnight hour by CNN as a way to throw a bone to Donald Trump.
Moving Jim Acosta to the midnight shift will certainly curry some favor, I think, with Donald Trump.
Billionaire owner of the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, gave Donald Trump $1 million, put his thumb on the editorial board scale by directing them they are unable to endorse Kamala Harris, blocking a cartoon that was critical of him and Donald Trump, and coincidentally is currently fighting a lawsuit brought forward by Biden's FTC that shows that Amazon is a monopoly, artificially inflating the prices on goods that you buy on Amazon, which Donald Trump will make go away, while paying Donald Trump $1 million is self-censoring. The billionaire owner of the LA Times put his thumb on the scale of the editorial board, telling them they could not endorse Kamala Harris. Put Scott Jennings, a pro-Trump acolyte, on his board.
Because also in California, you might have recall a news story from last year, there was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet I'm wondering now, if your house is burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters are?
You can respond.
Billionaire owner of the Los Angeles Times has reportedly asked the paper's editorial board to, quote, take a break from writing about President-elect Donald Trump. Patrick Soon-Chong has reportedly required editors to send him the text of every editorial and the name of its writer before publishing.
Facebook stopped its fact-checking as a way to bow to Donald Trump, after its owner gave Donald Trump $1 million.
The president-elect is also praising a decision by Mark Zuckerberg to effectively ditch its fact-checking program on Facebook, Instagram, and other meta platforms.
It's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. The fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created.
Meta is also facing lawsuits from the Biden administration. Donald Trump will make those go away.
The judge wrote in his decision that the FTC has now alleged enough facts to plausibly establish that Facebook exercises monopoly power in the market for personal networking services through anti-competitive conduct, specifically the acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp.
The chilling effect on journalists is already being seen. For example, MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, major critics of Donald Trump, went to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee out of fear of retaliation. It shot a message to all journalists to bend the knee to Donald Trump, to self-censor for Donald Trump, or risk retaliation. Elon Musk purchased Twitter just so he could bring Donald Trump and a bunch of white supremacists back onto the platform. He then used it to amplify right-wing disinformation as well as crazy white nationalist conspiracy theories.
Tesla's moving lower again after falling almost 4% yesterday in the wake of the latest social media controversy surrounding Elon Musk. On his X platform, Musk responded to a post which embraced an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, calling it the absolute truth, though he attempted to qualify that statement in a later post. Didn't stop IBM from pulling its ads from X after a report found that some of them were positioned next to pro-Nazi content.
Newspapers across the country are dropping the Dilbert comic strip after its creator, Scott Adams, went on a stunning racist tirade this weekend, calling Black Americans a hate group and advising white people to stay away from them.
Twitter CEO Elon Musk coming to Adams' defense, tweeting, "The media is racist,"
in a direct effort to get Donald Trump reelected.
It was not correct to ban Donald Trump. I think that was a mistake. I think it was a morally bad decision, to be clear. Obviously, I strongly believe that President Trump is the path to an exciting, inspiring future, and I hope you agree and that you will, obviously vote in favor of him, and also get your friends, family, acquaintances, and everyone you meet to do the same.
If you already believe in the Constitution, you're just signing something you already believe, and you can win $1 million.
There's always this sort of question of, say, the Dominion voting machines. It is weird that I think they're used in Philadelphia and in Maricopa County, but not in a lot of other places. Doesn't that seem like a heck of a coincidence?
Again, we won the young vote. I think I won it through TikTok. So I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok.
Are you open to Elon buying TikTok?
I would be if he wanted to buy it, yeah.
Donald Trump understands that most people nowadays do not get their information from legacy media. The new flows of information are through social media, and Donald Trump has brought all of them under his heel. What this means for you will fall for pro-Trump disinformation at some point, by design, thanks to these people. Orban's success came out of turning independent news agencies into tools for suppressing dissent. You are already living through this. You are seeing it now. It's just going to get worse. 5, expose your opponents. Orban advocated for conservatives not to see opponents as those who have a disagreement, no longer adhering to democratic norms of people with just different ideas, but as radicals and extremists.
5. pont. Leplezd le az ellenfeleid szándékát. A média megléte szükséges, de nem elégséges feltétele a győzelemnek. Tabu döntögetőnek is kell lenni. Ezt talán az amerikai barátainknak nem kell bemutatnom, mert ki lenne nagyobb tabu döntögető, mint maga Donald Trump elnök. De lehet még fokozni a dolgot.
Vilifying opponents as enemies to the nation. Those who previously watched my Trump is a fascist video, this all sounds familiar. 6, deliver economic wins. Orban warned that conservatives fail if they fail to deliver on their promises, because conservative economics don't work.
6. pont, gazdaság.
So Orban's policies focus on short-term, visible financial benefits to voters. It's not just going to be tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations like last time, where Donald Trump permanently cut his own taxes and the taxes of his billionaire friends. But we know that Donald Trump and conservatives are looking at another foreign authoritarian to import their economic policies, and that is this man, Javier Milei of Argentina, who instituted massive layoffs of the federal government and crushing austerity measures that may look good for foreign banks, but is crushing the populace into poverty.
For the 3rd month in a row, Argentina recorded the highest inflation rate in the world. According to new data released on Tuesday, prices grew approximately 13% on average here in Buenos Aires in the month of February from the previous month. Yearly, that is an inflation rate of over 270%. And
No, you heard that right. Over 250% inflation.
That's taken its toll, with more than 50% of the population now in poverty, the highest rate in 20 years, and a deepening recession.
This is the economic model Trump has promised to import?
We have to reduce spending to live within our means. Yeah, that necessarily involves some temporary hardship, but it will ensure long-term prosperity.
And this is a look into your future. Even if it's through smoke and mirrors, by tying any success to government stability, it kept Orban's critics on the defensive. 7, avoid extremism. It's kind of funny, but Orban's point is you may have extreme views, like authoritarianism, but in your speech and rhetoric, avoid directly talking about them.
7. pontunk, ne szorulj ki a szélére. Azért mondom önöknek, mert a jobb oldalon időről időre felütik a fejüket szélsőséges összeesküvés elméletek.
Frame your point as the rational middle ground. Even though you're talking about book bannings, frame your argument as the middle ground, rather than the extremist ideas they actually are.
So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money.
This neutralizes critics by making them seem unreasonable. 8, read and educate yourself. Orban emphasized the need for conservatives to stay informed.
Minden nap olvassunk. A book a day keeps the defeat away.
claiming that the intellectuals in the party need to understand complex ideas in order to reframe them for a largely uneducated populace, and to help politicians craft narratives that resonate with voters while appearing thoughtful and credible. 9, have faith.
Legyen hited. Ha valaki nem hiszi, hogy lesz egyszer végelszámolás, és a tetteiért majd felelnie kell az Úristen előtt, akkor úgy van vele,
by tying your vision to Christian values, well, not that Christian, 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 argue that faith is responsible to prevent a moral decay. It then allows conservatism to be framed as inherently moral and progressive values as destructive. 10, build alliances. His belief that conservatives fight over minor differences, and instead by building a large conservative coalition, you could then sideline the smaller factions.
10. pont, keres barátokat.
Nationalist parties from Austria, Hungary and the Czech Republic have formed a new far-right group in the European Parliament. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban launched the new Patriots for Europe party along with Austrian politician Herbert Kickl and Czech Andrej Babis.
Just so we're all clear, the person in the middle is Herbert Kickl, far-right Austrian leader who wants to create a pure-blood Austria through remigration, kicking out non-pure-blooded Austrians from the country. And the person on the left is Andrej Babis, a Czech oligarch that is trying to undo democracy in the Czech Republic. That's the type of coalitions that the right wants to build.
11, build communities.
11. pont, építs közösségeket. Barátaim, az évek során azt is megtanultam, hogy nincsen konzervatív politikai siker működő közösségek nélkül.
Orbán claimed that conservative success relies on strong communities. So his government invested in programs that encouraged group identity, church support groups, family support groups, framing them as antidotes to progressives, which he believed that progressivism leads to isolation. And finally, create lasting institutions.
És végül 12. pont, építs intézményeket. Ne felejtsük el, politikusok jönnek, mennek. De az intézmények generációkon át velünk marad.
Orbán concluded by emphasizing the importance of creating long-lasting institutions that will outlive the leader. So stacking institutions like the judiciary, regulatory bodies, universities, all with brainwashed loyalists. It will ensure your influence even if you leave office, and will sustain your political ideology and suppress dissent for generations. So this is why you see things like Republicans stealing 2 seats on the Supreme Court. Orbán's central curriculum control revolved around patriotic education, manufacturing a past that didn't exist that glorified Hungary's Christian heritage, leaving a one-sided version of history. Orbán then defunded universities that did not conform to this rewriting of history. Trump is also calling for patriotic education, directly mirroring exactly what happened in Hungary. You are seeing this happen now in places like Florida. Ron DeSantis and Florida Republicans changed the entire education system where they must teach the Orwellian-named classical liberal arts. These are infused with white supremacist, Christo-fascist ideas that are a tool of nationalism and ideological conformity to conservative ideas, using state power to rewrite history where slavery didn't exist.
Florida schools must now teach students about the, quote, benefit of slavery when teaching Black history. The controversial new education standard passed by the State Board of Education earlier this week. Now, this follows Governor DeSantis' so-called Stop Woke Act, which forced the rewriting of education standards there in Florida. A controversial part of these new standards is instruction for middle school students to learn, quote, how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
Get your clarification on one thing within the policy. It says instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Could you just explain why?
Well, you should talk to them about it. I mean, I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it. But I think what they're doing is I think that they're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life. But the reality is all of that is rooted in whatever is factual. They listed everything out.
It's the Confederacy all over again. They're teaching their college students now to be good little Confederates. Chris Rufo, a right-wing superstar who invented the critical race theory scare.
As the New Yorker said, invented the conflict over critical race theory.
Yeah, fair, fine.
Following Orban's model, Rufo created a blueprint for a conservative takeover of American universities.
I'm very interested and engaged in politics. And so for me, politics is a kind of structured competition for control over laws and institutions. That's what I think Machiavelli would say. My work is predominantly to expose institutional corruption, to mobilize public opinion, and then to translate that into political action, legislative and executive action. When you're looking at an existing institution, you can raise it, destroy it, you can capture it, take it over, or you can replace it, creating something new, an alternative, a competitor, a successor. The first option, to raise it, quite kind of the final proof of these is, how many pink slips are getting delivered. That's kind of the bedrock reality of it. Mass layoffs at University of Florida, University of Texas. They're shutting down all of these institutions. Okay, good night. The second is to capture. If you have an institution that is important, that may have also had a kind of deviation from its historical mission, or it's strategically valuable, you can exercise political power to capture it, and then to reform it or restore it. The third option is to replace. So saying, this system is broken, let's create a new system that is better.
Rufo presented his proposals at Mar-a-Lago. Then Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature changed Florida laws, and Rufo was rewarded by Ron DeSantis for taking over a small liberal arts college and remade it into a white male college for conservatives only.
This is the story of a small public college in Florida that's become the opening move in a conservative counter-revolution. I'm one of the new trustees appointed by Governor DeSantis, and my first official duty was to visit the college and begin a dialogue about the coming transformation.
You've created an environment in which the most intolerant, the most aggressive, and the people who threaten violence can veto you, can veto the president, can veto any changes. We're setting a new standard here. I'm going to level with you. We're all here for a serious problem.
Things were going to change whether they liked it or not. The first meetings of the new board can only be described as a coup. In a rapid sequence of decisions, the new trustees voted to fire the president, abolish the DEI department, shut down the gender studies program, and establish colorblind equality as the new standard. The provost and a large number of activist faculty members resigned. The DEI director and other administrators were fired. The problems at New College are, in many ways, the same as the problems with American universities as a whole. Administrators established a diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucracy to enforce left-wing orthodoxy. The man we hired to save New College was former Education Commissioner and Speaker of the Florida House, Richard Corcoran. He was the perfect choice to turn around Florida's most left-wing university. Corcoran immediately set to work, turning over the administration, bringing in new faculty, and working on a new classical liberal arts curriculum. He's also begun the work of changing the culture, hiring a new slate of all-star faculty and recruiting a new cohort of mostly male student athletes who will begin to rebalance the hormones and the politics on campus. Meanwhile, some of the most militant students and faculty members have self-selected out. Florida is governed by the people, not the faculty, and not the mob. Governor DeSantis, President Corcoran, and all of those working to transform New College understand that our public institutions must reflect the values of the public. And in Florida, that means providing conservative families with at least one state university that will fight for the great tradition of higher education.
To remake independent institutions into pillars of conservative propaganda. When Viktor Orban first got into office the second time, he purged the entire government of those he felt were disloyal. Donald Trump plans to do the same thing by reclassifying government workers as Schedule F. I love that people are like, oh, he would never do a fascist thing like that. He did already in December 2020. Joe Biden reversed it on the first day. Schedule F reclassification will give Donald Trump the ability to purge the federal government of anyone who he seems disloyal, and anyone who thinks they want to speak out will be silenced out of fear of retribution. Gone are the people who, when Donald Trump says shoot the protesters, they will say no.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
Gone are the people when Donald Trump says shoot the Hispanics seeking legal asylum and would say no.
According to the book, Mr. Trump suggested shooting migrants in the legs.
Gone are the people who would oversee the fraud and lawlessness and say no.
That the president repeatedly wanted assurance that Comey was the president's ally, and he didn't get it. At a private dinner with Comey, the FBI director says the president asks for his loyalty. In February, the president clears out the Oval Office to be alone with Comey and asks him to let go of the investigation into Michael Flynn.
On March 20th, 2017, Comey publicly tells Congress that the FBI is investigating Russian attacks on the election and any links to the Trump campaign.
President fires Comey 6 days later.
Instead replaced with loyalists who will unquestionably do Donald Trump's bidding.
Instead of having 67 people that can say no and don't want to follow your lawful command, you just have a chain of command that goes from point to point, right? So I think you need way less people. You don't need this massive number. I think that is a fiction of the deep state. Not to mention, again, you save money. Then you need to do a whole bunch of things with personnel. For like instance, at FBI, you need to stock it with a director, deputy director, and the heads of the separate divisions. Same thing at CIA and DOD that are going to support. And the media, again, is distorting it already. Trump's going to install loyalists. Kash Patel's a Trump loyalist. What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if the guy gives me a lawful chain of command authority, you want me to not execute it? That's unlawful if I violate it.
Russ Vought, who's going to oversee the Schedule F reclassifications for Trump, wrote the piece in Project 2025 about this very thing. And the news media is so fucking stupid because Russ Vought was caught on a secret recording explaining what Schedule F is and how Donald Trump knows everything about Project 2025, but he's just saying publicly he doesn't know anything about it because the Democrats correctly wrapped it around his neck.
But behind closed doors, Vogt tells us not to take Trump's disavowal seriously.
I expect you to hear 10 more times from the rally the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
Yeah. And you're not worried about that?
I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
It's interesting. He's in fact not even opposing himself to a particular policy. Yeah. He's been at our organization. He's raised money for our organization. He's blessed it from I remember walking into our last day in office and told him what I was going to do. I think you have to rehabilitate Christian nationalism. You have the largest deportation in history, block funding for Planned Parenthood. I want to be the person that crushes the deep state.
I know nothing about Project 25. I haven't seen the document. I don't intend to really see the document.
And then after the election's over, he's like, yay, we're going to do Project 2025 now. They take Donald Trump at his word like he's a normal fucking person. But anyway, Russ Vought oversaw the creation of a database of over 10,000 vetted MAGA loyalists who will be put in place after they purge the federal government of those seen disloyal. Once these partisans are in place, Donald Trump will have unchecked power. The entire deep state conspiracy theory came out of this civil service who prevented the worst fascistic impulses of Donald Trump. Those people are gone.
We would put forward some policy solution. And then we'd have the lawyers come in and say, it's not legal. You can't do that. And we're trying to build at the Center for Renewing America almost a shadow Office of Management and Budget. We're trying to build a shadow Office of Legal Counsel so that when a future president says, what legal authorities do I need to shut down the riots? We want to be able to shut down the riots and not have the legal community or the defense community to come in and say that's an inappropriate use of what you're trying to do.
Donald Trump hired Kash Patel to run the DOJ, who wrote a book on how he's going to throw Donald Trump's political enemies in jail.
The word treason is thrown out quite often. Is it actual treason?
I mean, I think what so many of these guys did, whether it's Brennan, Clapper, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Barr, Haspel, Esper, what have you, I think there's a lot of rule and law breaking, but what you have is a buildup of so many actions by the deep state that it becomes borderline treasonous to allow those people and their activities in a collective fashion to ever be applied to the United States.
What would be the harshest punishment you could see happening to some of these people?
Some of them being prosecuted. I mean, there's nothing harsher than that, right? Your civil liberties are taken away from you and you're sent to prison. It's about as harsh as it gets.
Donald Trump and Project 2025 have promised to dismantle the Environmental Protection Agency, which gives you clean air and clean drinking water. You will no longer have those protections. But do you remember when Donald Trump was caught telling big oil donors, if you give me $1 billion, I'll let you do whatever you want? This is that. And Donald Trump will get rid of the Department of Education, finally giving his billionaire donors like Betsy DeVos free rein to teach our children Christian nationalism. The rejection of the observable science of evolution, of a bottom-up process, but instead intelligent design, which is a top-down, overseen by a god. That's going to be taught to your kids. It's not science, it's Christian nationalism. It couldn't hold up in court. Win at any cost. Republicans have a long history of exploiting culture wars for political gain. This isn't anything new, but Orban's model showed how to optimize the effectiveness of that shiny object. Donald Trump's most effective ad during the 2024 election season was us versus them.
Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
And if you remember back to my fascist video, this should sound familiar, separating us into two groups and getting us to fight against each other, as the billionaires rape us economically. Woke. I have yet to see anyone explain to me what woke is. Go ahead, explain to me, what is woke? Nobody has, nobody can, nobody will.
And what does it mean, no woke zone?
No woke zone, that this is not for the woke ideology.
And this is what kind of ideology?
Bad, very bad.
Anytime you hear someone talk about wokeness, it's usually about black people and women and gay people, never about white men. And that should tell you everything you need to know about the conservative idea of woke. Conservative book bans of books with black protagonists. These conservatives keep pushing white nationalist culture wars as a way to distract you. It is the Orban model. By spotlighting white supremacist cultural issues, Republicans look to galvanize their racist base, create a fascist us versus them wedge with the populists, and divert discourse from actual policy solutions.
Trump and Republicans will reframe January 6th, rewriting history, as a peaceful day, which most Republicans already falsely believe.
The J6 hostages.
But Republicans will use Donald Trump's big lie to push through voting reforms that will benefit them. And he will continue to do it until he leaves office, which he's not leaving office. But now Republicans will be more apt to pass laws that directly target his critics. We are already seeing this. In Florida, when Disney decided to go up against Ron DeSantis, DeSantis changed the laws to punish Disney and won. That was a testing ground. That will now scale to the federal level. He'll go after charities, organizations that promote democracy, celebrities, journalists, citizens. It never mattered in the past. An untethered Trump will only be worse. Orban, like Putin, doles out favors to those who are loyal to him. It creates a wall of defense where he doesn't have to fight every battle. His acolytes can go out and fight for him. If somebody at some company is critical, Orban doesn't have to worry about that. The billionaire owner of that company who owes all of his success to Orban will fire that employee for disloyalty. That's the life of the working class Hungarian. That's life in an authoritarian state. That's the life that you will now have. With multiple CEOs flying to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee and pay tribute to Donald Trump. The CEO of Coca-Cola giving Donald Trump his own commemorative Coke bottle. They are all bowing to him because they know what will happen if they don't. So what I'm trying to tell you is America as you knew it is over. If you agree with Trump, you're an American. If you disagree with Trump, you are no longer American. The sooner you realize it, the sooner you'll understand where you're at. So I offer this to you as a warning. What happened in Hungary is going to happen here, and Republicans have told you this is their intention. I do not want to sugarcoat this for you. The America you knew is over. You will slowly see your democracy go backwards and backwards and backwards. They're going to do this incrementally and incrementally and incrementally. But realize you are living in it now.
To finally defeat fascism, the alliance of Hitler and Mussolini, it took a massive and heroic Allied effort, led by Britain, America, and the Soviet Union.
Germany had seemed invincible, but after his ill-fated decision to invade the Soviet Union, Hitler was on his heels and the tide was beginning to turn. Italian partisans overthrew their fascist government, switched sides, and joined the Allies.
Defeating a totalitarian society like fascist Germany took total war, and victory came at great cost.
And both great fascist commanders met gruesome ends. In Italy, angry citizens turned on their dictator with fury, executing Mussolini by firing squad, then hanging his body upside down for all to see.